Hello there. Welcome back to the channel. This is the back door. This is a channel that where I am going to try to show you and try to show myself that God welcomes the most unlikely people in the most unlikely spaces into his presence, and he wants to know them. He wants them to know him. And so my channel is geared towards that. And so I hope that you're doing well today. I hope that you are finding the joy in the little things in life. And I hope that things are not too burdensome. I hope that things are not too overwhelming for you today. Hopefully, we can journey together as I talk about what's about to come next, the various topics that I'm going to start to address. And as you saw in the title, it's is blood thicker than water, blood versus water, family versus friends, those who have raised us versus those who are not in our bloodline. These are things we often see divisions with. These are relationships that often come into conflict, or relationships that we try to keep separate for whatever reason. So we will be getting into all that. But first, I do want to let you guys know, I in my home, I used to have a front door that did not work. And I don't know what it was. I think the frame was broken or something, and every time we opened it, the frame would come off until we got the front door fixed. But it was interesting because the people that came over most knew, oh, I got to go around the back of their house to knock on the back door because the front door doesn't work. And the people that weren't really close to us, or people that would just swing by, would end up knocking on the front door, and we couldn't really answer without breaking the door further. So it was an interesting dynamic where those who were closest to us would actually have to walk up our driveway. Well, they would just do it. They'd walk up our driveway, walk in the fence that we have, and then they'd go right up to the back door and start knocking. And then the people that were just here dropping off a package, or friends that we haven't seen for a while, or even family that usually doesn't come to our house, would end up going to the front door. And I think we were even leaving out the back to go to the front of the door and talk to them. So it's an interesting dynamic that we used to have in our home until we got the front door fixed. But it just shows you the level of boldness that people who are intimate with you, people who know you best, can have. They're confident enough to go into your backyard and knock on the back door. And so I want everyone in my life to be backdoor people, where it's like, you're not only welcome at our house, you're welcome in our yard. You're welcome to come in through the back door, to knock on the back door. And so it just showed that the people who were most intimate with us knew, I got to go to the back door. And people who didn't know as well, or we didn't know as well, were still knocking on the front door because they didn't know exactly how our house was set up, which I think it's a statement for kind of what we're getting into a little bit. It's kind of funny too, who has a front door that doesn't work. We also didn't have a doorbell. My wife just hates the idea of a doorbell, having that ringing in the house. So we have a different type of doorbell now, but the ring only works on the outside, so we can't even hear it. It's like, what's the point of even having a doorbell at that point? Maybe we should get one of those like ring bells, those old school ring bells where you pull it and it just rings. Maybe that would be more effective. But today's going to be really brief. I'm just going to talk about what I'm going to get into over the next few streams, maybe 4 streams. It's going to be like a series of sorts as we get into family, because it's a very complex and nuanced topic, and it can't really be effectively addressed in a few minutes. So before we get into family things, what does the Bible say about family? What does Jesus's life and circumstances have to do with that? I want to draw you in and invite you in to participate in this. And one of the ways you can do that is by doing some self-reflection about your life, about your circumstances, about your family. And so I've set up a few questions that I'd like to ask, that I would like you to reflect upon, that I would like for you, if you're willing, to write down and even just think about. For me personally, when I'm reflecting on things, sometimes it helps me to get on my computer and type it out, because I can type faster than I can write. So I can kind of keep up with my mind a little bit about what I'm processing. Sometimes though, I just like to sit alone and reflect on things in silence. And other times, obviously, writing or journaling can be helpful as well. So I have a set of 4 questions that I'd like to present to you, and if you can delve into them, take your time going through them and see what comes up. I think it'd be helpful going forward as we address this idea of family, as we address the idea of what God says family is, as we address our family of origin, our biological family, and also as we address what circumstances we have now that we're older and that we're kind of getting away from our family of origin in terms of like traditions and how they operated and trying to establish how we're doing things in our own homes. I think it's important that we also find out what the role of friends are in that, and people that we're drawn to, friends that we have or our friends that we look up to and things of that nature. So here are the questions. I'm gonna take you a little slow, maybe give you a moment or two to reflect upon them even now. So my first question for you is, how do you define family? When you think of the word family or the idea of family, what kinds of things come to mind? Maybe maybe you automatically reflect to your experiences with your family and the traditions you had, or no traditions, or just how your home life was structured. Or maybe you think of how some of your friends' families operate with each other. Maybe that's how you figure out your definition of family. But I just want you to reflect personally with yourself, what is my definition of family? And how do I define that? And what does family mean to you? And after you do that, the second question I want you to reflect upon is, who am I responsible to? When you think of responsibilities and you think of the circle of people in your life, where do the various people in your life fall in, just in terms of responsibility? When you think of, I have to take care of, who's in that blank? Who are you responsible to? Who are you responsible for? Who do you have to take care of? That would be my second question to you. My third question to you, it's kind of a two-parter. Starting out, it would be, where has my family, and I'm talking specifically your family of origin, those who raised you, where has my family made me feel loved and cherished, or loved and cared for? Is the first part of that question. So, what kinds of things did my family do? How did they interact with me emotionally? Where did they take me? What did they get for me that made me feel loved and cherished? And also, the second part of that question is, where has my family frustrated or disappointed me at various points in my life? So that's a two-part question. The first part is, where has my family made me feel loved and cared for and cherished? And the second part would be, where has my family frustrated or failed me or disappointed me? Okay, we're on a roll. So, and now the final question that I'd like you to reflect upon as we get ready to get into this topic and break it down and talk about it more in depth is, how do I want to live or navigate my life going forward? This is thinking more about um, what your desires are or your dreams are for your personal life and the family that you're building. What direction do you want to go in going forward? And I think this fourth question has a lot to do with our experiences that we've had that are different than what we've dealt with in our homes, what we've dealt with parents or siblings, what we've seen growing up in the house, in the house of our youth, where we didn't get to choose that we were going to grow up in that house. We didn't get to choose our mom and our dad. We didn't get to choose our brothers and sisters. We didn't get to choose our aunts and uncles. We just found ourselves figuring out what the world looked like and what our world looked like while we were younger. And then obviously as we grew up, we had a little more freedom. We had a little more exposure to school and peer groups. And so some things challenged what we thought family was and what we thought we understood about family and the world. And so this question kind of brings both of those worlds together, where it says, how do I want to live or navigate my life going forward based off of what I saw growing up and also based off of what I've experienced now as an adult or as an older person. So you're kind of bringing together those two experiences and making some judgment calls about what you want your life to be like going forward and what kind of dynamics you'd like to have in your home. And so, just to give you the four points that I'm going to be delving into, that we're going to be delving into as I get into this series, we're gonna go into the Bible and look at a few stories, several stories that kind of highlight these ideals in the life of Jesus, particularly. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and I don't know exactly how it's going to be structured. I might do two things in one stream, two things in another stream, but I have four things total that I want to get into. And the first thing is the progeny of God. And I know I used a ridiculous word that no one ever uses, but progeny just basically means family and family line of God. So when you're talking about progeny, you're talking about family. And you'll see why I used progeny instead of just family. So the first thing is the progeny of God or the family of God. The second thing is going to be the priorities of God. What does God say is most important? And so we're going to see what he says is most important. We're going to see how that holds up to what we view as most important. We're going to see if there's any differences there. Then we're going to look at the persuasion of God, which the persuasion of God is him orienting our hearts and our desires in such a way that we're not stuck in one spot, but he's challenging us to go in a different direction than what we're used to. And we're going to see how God does that with his persuasion and how he utilizes people in order to persuade us of what he deems is best. And also, the last thing we're going to look into is the perspective of God. How does God view family? How does God view friends? How does God view even our family of origin and their role in our lives? We're going to delve briefly into all of these things over the next upcoming weeks, maybe a couple months, maybe longer. But we're going to delve into all these things. So you see why I chose progeny for my first P word, because I got four P's. We got progeny, which is family, priorities, persuasion, and perspective. And I think all of these are things that we're really addressing when we're thinking about the concept of family and when we're thinking about how to navigate family things, when we're thinking about how to honor God, especially in the midst of navigating our family. This is really challenging stuff. This is stuff that even people who study it and who have been biblical scholars their whole lives are going to find themselves coming up against their family traditions and their ideals of family and what God says family is, and trying to navigate very complex territory in relational circumstances. And so we're going to delve in this together. It's going to be murky. It's going to be challenging, but hopefully we find some clear waters. Hopefully we find some steady streams that we can navigate down together, and hopefully we all grow together and become better for it. And so one of the things that scripture teaches, especially in the Old Testament, talks about honoring your father and mother, that your days might be long on the earth. And so there's a promise tied to honoring your father and mother, your biological father and mother. And so if there's promises tied into that, the question then becomes, well, what does honoring them look like? And how do I do that? And then basically the Lord also says, like, listen to my law and obey my law and my commands. And if you obey my law and my commands, that's how you express your love for me. And so, what does that look like when it comes to family? What does that look like when it comes to things that God's telling us specifically and we know He's telling us? And what does that look like, especially when when our family doesn't necessarily make it easy for us to follow the voice of God? And so that's the difficulty that we're stepping into over the next few weeks and next couple months. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, it was going to be short. It was going to be sweet. I hope all is well with you. I hope that no matter what difficulties and circumstances you find yourself in on this day or going forward, I do pray that it would just, you would feel that burden easing up off of you. I pray that this would help you in some ways release that burden, whether you were reflecting on the questions or thinking about your life in perspective. I thank you for joining me at this channel. I thank you for coming here to listen to a few words. I don't really know if they're words of wisdom. Time will tell. But thank you so much. I love you. I care for you, and I hope that you will come back, and I hope that we can talk more. Until later, God bless you. Godspeed, and we'll see you soon.